Hello everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. We're going to be talking about driving your case management solutions. Please chat any questions or comments you have in the presentation window, or use any of our social media to interact with us today. This month we are talking about different types of software drivers, and no, this is not the kind of software drivers that run your printers and other peripherals, but we're talking about how you interact with a new technology or a software tool. Different driver personalities approach new software in different ways, and they use technical support differently as well. When talking about a highly configurable case management solution, how much you do on your own and how you complete your project may depend on what type of driver you are. If you haven't yet, we invite you to take our online quiz to find out what type of driver you are. A link to that quiz is available on our homepage at newdawn.com. Earlier this week, I sat down with two performance drivers and talked about how they use their case management solution to help meet the needs of their agencies. And although we talked specifically about Justware, which is the highly configurable case management solution developed by New Dawn Technologies, the things that we talked about during these conversations, you can easily take what they say and apply it to any quality configurable system. So first, let me introduce you to Michael Lockridge, the project manager with the Information Technology Department in Pima County, Arizona.
And Michael, I'd just like you to take a minute and let you introduce yourself and what you do with Pima County.
All right, thanks for the introduction. So as you said, I'm the project manager for the Justware project here in Pima County. Pima County is a mid-sized county in Arizona. We have about 1 million people altogether, just under that. And for Justware, we have several departments that are using it, all of them related to indigent defense. We have a public defender, a legal defender, several smaller defenders, and an office for contracting out court-appointed counsel. Each of our departments previously had their own legacy case tracking systems, and they had files out scattered around shared folders with all of their documents and their video. And I was managing those projects as well, and we wanted to replace all of their old legacy stuff with something that was modern, it was efficient, maintainable, reliable, and most importantly, it was scalable. So we had several goals that we wanted to do in doing this, and quite a bit of what was involved in managing the project was just finding out exactly what they wanted to do. And what these departments wanted to do was eliminate all their redundant data entry, because any piece of data got entered generally 8 or 10 different times. We wanted to eliminate or at least reduce copying of documents, particularly all the disclosure, the evidence that they have. And we wanted to store everything, whether it was data or files, all in one unified spot where everybody could get to it. And we also wanted to be able to maintain the system as our infrastructure improves. As we move into Windows 7 on the desktops, for example, we didn't want to have something that only runs in Windows 3.5.1 or whatever.
Okay, so when you talk about these three departments and you have these goals, eliminate redundant data entry, copying documents, and storing everything in a unified spot, you had to, coming from 3 different systems, and I think I would guess that their workflows are a little bit different, the documents that they used are a little bit different, formats, things like that. Was it hard to kind of mesh everybody together, or did you have a pretty good group to work with?
Both. The group was very good to work with, but they all had divergent ways of doing business. So even though they were good to work with, just dealing with these differences between the different offices was difficult. Even on something as simple as templates, when you got one office that's used to templates that look a certain way and have a certain logo and the wording is such, and then the other office has an entirely different habit, basically, getting them to negotiate over what they would end up with. It took quite a bit of time. But it was worth doing because they did want to standardize what they were doing. They have staff, for example, that have transferred from one department to the other. If the staff is all used to doing business the same way, that becomes very easy, and then they can balance their load with changing demographics in the county or changing case types or whatever is going on. So they're a lot more fluid.
I know I imagine their ongoing training costs would be decreased significantly as well, which is a benefit in today's budgetary climate that we have. So,
yes.
So you had no experience with Justware prior to this project. This was the project where you implemented this brand new case management, unified case management system for all three departments. And you basically tackled it on your own. So you did all of the configuration on the back end, as well as like the document templates that you mentioned, and screen development, business rule development, all of that. You tackled this on your own. Talk to me about a little bit about that experience. First, why you did it this way, and second, how was the experience with the tools that Justware provides?
Okay. Well, basically, we did it because we could do it. In previous discussions with people, I've pointed out quite a bit that Justware is very well architected. So it's a huge amount of work to do it on your own, but on the other hand, you can do it, and it's not insurmountable, as opposed to some systems we've seen where you just can't do it. There's no documentation. There's no technical building to allow you to do it. This one is pretty straightforward. It makes sense both from a database point of view and from a user interface point of view. And so our customers are actually able to get involved pretty heavily in the configuration of the system. And even though we only had a few departments that we were bringing into Justware, we actually had several different systems. We had different systems for the trials guys, different for the appeals, so they all had their own inputs into it. Now, why did we want to do it on our own just because we could is primarily a financial issue for us. You have to save every penny you can these days, and you pretty much always do in the indigent defense world. Generally, our departments are not well funded. But we did not want to skimp out on getting a good quality product, which we could have gotten another product that didn't have quite as much capability, but we didn't want to do that. We didn't want to get less licenses than we actually wanted to use. We wanted everybody in the system. But at the same time, in order to do this, we had to get new servers to handle the capacity of what we were going to do, and we had to replace our entire fleet for desktop and laptop computers, because if they weren't powerful enough, it didn't matter that we had all this capability. Our users wouldn't be able to do anything with it. And what this has done now is we have a very good system in place. All of the indigent defense departments are using the same thing. We have growth capacity in our infrastructure. And so now the departments can grow, which reduces our reliance on contracted defense staff, which costs the county less money. So overall, we're saving the constituents quite a bit.
And how did you find the tools that are available within Justware, the configuration tools, like the business rules manager, the document automation, creating those templates, even building the reports that you have and things like that? How did you find those tools, getting ready, building screens, to work on, to actually configure Justware to be the tool that you needed?
Overall, they're pretty easy to deal with. Probably the easiest of all is the document templates. The JDA is very easy to work with. Even somebody that's not particularly savvy with databases, once they get the concept of having a little query that it uses to call the database, they can go out and structure a pretty decent JDA document. Even if they don't know about the underlying queries, they can at least set it up and say, well, I'd like this field here to connect to that one, and then they can get a technical person to do it. The user interface was similarly not very difficult to configure, and the code tables were not. There are a lot of subtleties when you really want to use the full capabilities of the system, particularly when you start talking about the security profiles, when you talk about hiding pieces of the drop-downs from one group and showing them to another group. all of that stuff has some sophisticated interaction, and it's hard to get a handle on it until you actually get out there and start trying to do it. But you can get a handle on it. It's not a black box. Everything has been made available to us to see what's going on. The database is open. We can go look directly and see what's in there and compare notes on what we're seeing in the front end and the documentation. The new Dawn support staff are very helpful, and generally they can answer pretty much any question we've got right off the bat. So that was a big impact to us. We had to be careful not to get carried away with configuring the system. There are so many things you can do. We started out actually trying to do too much and realized we're just digging ourselves in a hole because we might have to change things later. So I actually pulled back and tried to simplify a little bit and thought, okay, we're just going to take our time and get used to the system, and then we'll try some of these whiz-bang ideas that people have gotten, see what they do.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like you dug really deep into Justware, and you were able to really look at, you said the back end is open, you're not working within a black box, you have access to everything. When you talk about the configuration of exactly what you did do, how much configuration did you put in place before this project went live?
Well, we had defined all the code tables, and we separated out who could see which bits of it, because even though we wanted to have unified processes between the departments, their business operations are just not the same in every case. So you don't want to have all the same case types for a juvenile office, for example, that you have for an adult office, because their case types just aren't the same thing. If you make them the same, it's so generic it loses its usefulness.
Mm-hmm.
So we customized the screens that we presented to the users quite a bit in order to try to get efficiency in the office. So we have some screens that are just for data entry clerks, and it's optimized around them. We have some screens that are just for attorneys. Mainly that's focused on their calendars, which is what they really like to see. But, of course, there's places like where do you take your notes and all that. We have different screens for the administrators, for the executives. And we didn't go nearly as in-depth in that as we were thinking we would go, because it just wasn't necessary. You can get to quite a few places even from a simplified screen, particularly with the tabs and snap-ins that Justware provides. But we did a lot of customization with the JDA, with the templates as well, and that's become very popular. And in fact, none of our users really want to have to bother to open up Word from anywhere but Justware now. And in order to accommodate that flexibility, we actually put in a template that's just a blank Word document, so they can type anything they want, and all they have to do is launch it from Justware. They never have to change processes.
Wow. I don't think I've ever heard of that instance of use for an automated document, but that's really interesting.
Well, you can't always think of every circumstance, so we just put it in there just to cover it.
And what about your reports? Did you have to write a lot of reports, or are they pretty standard? I know that Justware comes with a bunch of available standard reports. What else did you have to do in addition to what's available?
In terms of building a lot of reports, we didn't do a whole lot. We have a couple of fairly specialized reports that we built, the primary one being for conflict checking, and we call this a case-involved parties report. And in that one, you've got a case, you've got people on it, you want to see if you've got a conflict with actually defending that case. And so you have to go see all these other people and all the cases that they've been on and see if legally you can take this case or not. Mm-hmm. That's the biggest standard kind of report as you would think of it out of the box. We are just now implementing a report that you wouldn't even think of as a report necessarily, but we're using it as such, which is an envelope report. And this is just for mailing out stuff to the clients. You would think of it as a template, actually, but we didn't want to create a new document in the filing cabinet every time we wanted to send a letter to somebody. So we just wrote it up as a report, and so they just run the report and print it out. So the reporting capability can be used for a lot more things than just your standard idea of get some piece of paper and print it out and people can nod their heads on it in the meeting.
Right. Look at some basic information or...
Right. And as you know, the New Dawn reports being interactive, you get a long ways away from the paper concept entirely because you can drill into them, and it's more like a convenient method for drilling around all your data as opposed to just presenting something that you print out.
Mm-hmm. Well, it sounds like you were able to really take some old systems and use the tools within JustWare to really configure what you needed. Did you find yourself just redoing what was in the old system? It sounds like you didn't just repurpose what you already had, but you really looked at your processes and tried to find ways to improve them and make everyone more efficient.
Yeah, we did quite a bit of that, and actually we had to kind of pull back because there was so much that we could do better than we could do previously, and people were so excited about it. Basically, as any project manager knows, you have to definitely work to contain scope creep, and we were having scope flood because people were so excited when they started seeing what they could do with the system, and they had millions of ideas for all these wonderful business rules they could do to automate everything, and millions of templates they could create and all sorts of customer or custom user interfaces. And I had to say, whoa, wait, we didn't plan for that much stuff on your initial go live. We'll do it all, but we don't want to do it right now or we'll never get the system rolled out no matter how easy it is to configure.
Right.
So that is a drawback with a really powerful, easy to use system is that people want to do more things than you can conceivably do right off the bat. But you just list them all and say, all right, let's get a schedule together and we'll do it all out there. And we are doing that. We have a whole plan for a new release of our configuration that will incorporate even more things than they can do now.
Nice. So when you talk about that, I mean, you've mentioned that you kind of just need to look and focus on what's core to the project to get started. Otherwise, you're going to have scope flood, and it's going to take a while to get live, and it's better for people to be using a core product than it is to have all the big things. Let's talk about what other tips and tricks do you have when you're working with a highly configurable system like JustWare. What else would you say to someone else who's really looking at a highly configurable system as far as what to look out for and what to be careful of when they're implementing something like this?
Well, the biggest issue I think you're going to have, and I think a lot of other project managers will agree, is data migration. It's in every system I've ever seen, data migration is very difficult and time-consuming, and that in itself, if you're not careful, can constitute a scope creep, and we all try to keep that stuff very well contained. And you can do that. You just have to focus on it. In this case, you kind of have to pair up your data migration with your development of your code tables right off the bat because you have to know how you're going to map to different values in the system. It's not just map the last name from the old system to the new system, assuming you have that luxury. It's, okay, here's the race codes in the old system. Here's the race codes in the new system. What do you want them to be in the new system? What do you do if the race codes between all the different agencies you're merging up don't line up? Do they all have to have the same race codes, or what do you do? So the data migration, formally, you can't bring that data in until after you've got all your code tables set up, you've got your user set up, all that kind of stuff. But you can't design those until you've figured out where you want to put the data in JustWare. So it has to go kind of hand in hand. And because data migration is so intense and there are just lots of places where things can go wrong if you're not careful, it seems to me that the best thing to do is just start data migration right off the bat. Design it, looking at the old system, deciding what they do now and how do they want to do it differently in the new system. And that's how you would do any project of this sort. But rather than saying, okay, we know we have to perform the data migration at the end, that doesn't mean you design it at the end. You have to design it in the beginning because it will help you design your user interface. It'll help you design your code tables and all the other parts. You don't actually bring the data in until you've done those things, but you don't know how to bring it in otherwise.
Well, good. So would you say, it sounds like the project's been very successful. You've been able to successfully do the configuration that you needed to, get everyone live as you needed to, and yet you still have a nice laundry list to continual updates and do continual updates and improvements to the system. So overall, in general, your users are pretty happy with it and ready to keep going and move forward?
Oh, yeah. We have a pretty good response to the product overall. We're still coming up to speed on what we can do with it, and with a sophisticated product, you have to become better technically to use it. It's like using your smartphone. You can't just sit there and dial a phone number and hold the black handset anymore. You have to actually know how to do a lot of stuff, and that's been the hardest thing. But everybody's very happy because now they can actually do all the stuff that they wanted to do for years. And because there's so much more they can do, we already have 2 follow-up projects that we're scheduling out just to do these kind of enhancements that you're mentioning there. So, yeah, we're very happy.
All right, perfect. Well, I'd just like to thank you, Michael, for your thoughts and comments today, and we'll move on.
All right, thank you very much.
Next, I'd like to welcome LaRue Starr, who is an application support analyst from the Oklahoma District Attorney's Council. Thank you, LaRue, for joining us today.
Absolutely.
So I'd just like you to just introduce a little bit about the Oklahoma District Attorney's Council, a little bit about how long you've been with NUDON and using our JustWare case management solution, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. The Oklahoma District Attorney's Council is an organization that supports all of the district attorney's offices throughout the state of Oklahoma. We provide human resources, payroll, IT support for these 25 districts across the state. I was hired by the District Attorney's Council about 2.5 years ago, and my position, as Marlene said, is application support analyst, primarily supporting JustWare users. And we have approximately 800 JustWare users across the state. That there are 3 of us that support those people, 2 application support analysts and a database administrator. And we take all of their calls, problems, requests for improvements, any document issues, any new reports that are needed, just troubleshooting problems they're having. A lot of it has to do with training issues, training new users how to use JustWare. So it's a pretty broad, diverse use of JustWare.
And I love how it's interesting that there's 3 of you supporting 800 users in 25 districts. So that says a lot about one, your team, and the tools that are available within JustWare to allow that to happen. So
we did have to come up to speed pretty fast. There were 2 of us that started about the same time, just about 3 years ago, and had a lot to learn about how to use JustWare, just familiarity with case management in general. I had come from healthcare fundraising, and so this was a whole new field for me. One of the other members of my team had been an attorney in Missouri, and so he brought a good, strong legal background and a lot of technical skills as well. And so I think the skill set the 3 of us have made a really good team for supporting all of our users.
Excellent. And you've been with the council for about 3 years, but the council has been a customer of NUDON Technologies for about 10 years, which is interesting. So the council and the users that have been around for that long have seen a lot of different changes in the JustWare and case management solution that they have been using. They started with a client server, which was had a little bit of configuration available to them, not a lot, but we did have some available. And now that you're rolling out our highly configurable version, which is I think giving you, and we'll talk about some of these, giving you a lot more options and a lot more flexibility in what you're able to do to support your 800 users, which is exciting.
Absolutely, and I'm discovering as I'm training people in the rollout that a lot of people that have had a method for using an older version of JustWare are really amazed at some of the changes in the new version and really pleased with how much more efficient they can be.
Good. And so let's just talk about some of those changes that you've made, your group has made, and your users are starting to see. The one thing that I think has been possibly had the biggest impact on them immediately is you were able to, because you were able to define your own screens, you were able to take all of the fields that they use and put them on one screen instead of having them go to multiple screens. Can you tell me a little bit about the reaction that you've had with that?
It's been really interesting in watching them during training because it's just like a light comes on in their eyes when they realize that they just have the tabs on a screen to go to and don't have to go, digging through other parts of the application to find what they need to work on. Another area that one of the first things that they notice is the search screen, the fact that there's that quick search area where they can put in a name, a social security number, a case ID, any piece of information in there and do their searching compared to the search capabilities in JustWare 4.6 that were a little bit more tedious to use. And then the fact that it comes up when they look up, say, a defendant's name, and they see both the name and the defendant's cases all in their search screen, it makes it so much easier for them to maneuver through the system.
Excellent. And you've taken, when it was rolled out before, the 25 districts that you support had all of their own reports. And you've taken those reports and you've refined them and made them available to all of the districts. Can you, which is, one of the strongest aspects of JustWare and any highly configurable system is being able to use that data in very usable and informative reports and making those reports and that information available to all of the users. Can you talk a little bit about what impact having all of these custom reports available to every district and not just a select one or two has had on the users?
What's been interesting is I've worked with the different districts to discover that they have their own little unique reports out there in JustWare 4.6. And so as we're going through the process of preparing for their upgrade, we go through and find out which of those custom reports they're still using and which ones may already be available to them. What I discovered is that there are reports that they didn't even know anyone else in the state was using that are very valuable for each of them. And so we just kind of made it a policy that as we upgrade each district, we would not only convert whatever custom reports they had that they still need, but also make available the ones that other districts have been using. It makes everyone's work so much more efficient and to have all that available. And the reports are really pretty easy to create in SSRS, and so it's been a real advantage to be able to make those available to everyone.
And have they, some of these districts have seen some reports that they have never seen before, and all of a sudden they're here and they're live and they're ready to go. What is the impact? Have they been using them almost immediately and seeing the benefit from some of these almost immediately, or does it take them a minute to warm up to them?
Well, in some cases it was something they could use just right away. Some of we have victim address reports and some personalized calendars and things that some of them would just jumped on and would use right away. Others are more of the financial reports, and some of the districts haven't quite gotten to the point that they're ready to use them yet. But as they get more proficient in the new version, they will be accessing them as well.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the security and how you manage permissions across 800 users. JustWare, as a highly configurable system, offers a lot of different options, but you've chosen to do all of your permissions management through security roles.
Right. We do it actually by defining them first in Active Directory as belonging to a specific role, and then those roles then are identified to the application, and that way you don't have to change specific people within the application, you just change a role. As we go through the upgrade process is the point that I'm reviewing all of the assigned roles for people, and a lot of our users are very infrequent users. A lot of the assistant district attorneys just look up things now and then but don't do any kind of data entry or document generation. And so for them, we've created a view-only group. so that way they can see whatever they need to on their cases, on their defendants, but they don't actually make any changes to the database. And then different levels of our data entry people, whether they're just a kind of a beginning or intermediate level, we'll give them a regular user permission. And then the people that are a lot more familiar with Office processes and with Justware, we will make them power users and give them more permissions, such as the ability to delete and enter new users and things like that.
Mm-hmm. And you've been able to successfully, I guess for lack of a better word, segment your 800 users into these different roles without any causing any problems with the database or the data itself?
Oh, not at all. Yeah, we've been able to do that real well. I usually work with, we have one Justware administrator in each district that I work with during the upgrade process and help to identify each person's role in the office and their use of Justware to define those groups. So that's worked out real well.
Good. Let's talk a little bit about some of the additional, you actually went a little bit further with your customization or I guess configuration when you took a look at your notification process during this upgrade. So I guess during the first implementation, NewDawn had to do some customization and actual changes to the code base to make your notification process work the way you wanted to. But this time around, your group was able to manage this with some training from NewDawn, was able to manage it 100% of the way and made it a little bit better. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Right. Yes, this is our batch notification process that's used by our financial districts that where they, for whether it's a bogus check case or a restitution case, where they're able to notify the defendant at various points in their payment process if they're late in making payments. And they have, like a first letter that just kind of warns them that they're out of line and need to send a payment in, to more serious ones ending even with a warrant in some cases. So this process was used extensively by some of our districts, and we needed to recreate it in Justware 5 since it was a custom feature of 4.6. And we had training on business rules and JDA documents, and it involved some pretty complex business rules. We had probably about 18 hours of training just to learn how to put this all together, and then finish creating. There's probably about 16 different steps to this process that each had its own set of business rules and document templates that had to be created. And we were able to do that and put that in place for our districts.
And you were able to make some improvements to the process along the way just because the solution itself was a little bit more advanced, or you just learned that you needed to make some changes through actual use of the process itself.
Right. A lot of times what we have found is where there were problems in the process in the past, we could improve on that. This is an opportunity to solve some issues from the past in the way that we had designed the business rules and so forth.
And so this process now is 100% automated. It's pretty hands-off, just according to some flags that are set, dates, different things like that are set in the database.
Right.
Nice. I'll bet that makes your users a little bit happy.
For sure.
So tell me a little bit about the process about learning the different configuration tools within Justware. And I mean, you're talking about security roles, you're talking about creating your own screens, you're talking about using the business rules and document automation to recreate and refine this notification process. These are a lot of the really big, important tools when you talk about any highly configurable case management solution. How was it to learn some of these and kind of look at it to say, well, we're not really on our own. We can receive training from NewDawn, but we are going to kind of take on this development or configuration on our own and go as far as we can. How was all of that process?
Right. Yeah, I think our thinking is that we want to customize things for our users within our team, and but knowing we have the availability of NewDawn support, we've built relationships with several NewDawn staff over the 3 years that I've been involved, and used expertise from a number of people there, from financials to security, just all across the board, and they've been extremely helpful. I think a lot of times they know when we call that we've kind of done our due diligence in trying to figure things out on our own, and so we present them with challenges sometimes that can be intriguing. But I've really enjoyed the training and just the support that we get from the NUDON staff. It's really wonderful. It's as though we're like family members. It's not us and them. We're all in this together, trying to figure out the best solution for our customers, which is really great.
Great. Well, thank you very much for this description of how you're using, how being an admin a little bit, especially an admin for 3 people managing 800 users across 25 districts. That's a pretty extensive reach, if you will, and how some of these highly configurable tools have helped you do that. I appreciate your time today.
Absolutely. Enjoyed it.
I would like to again thank Michael and LaRue for their time and sharing their experiences implementing and training on a highly configurable case management solution and how a supportive vendor helped with their overall success. As I mentioned to begin, if you haven't taken our driver personality quiz to see where you fit, feel free to follow the link on the homepage of nudon.com and find out where you are. We invite you to post your results on our Facebook and Twitter, and don't forget to register for our ebook coming out later this month. I'd like to thank you all for joining us today. I hope you join us next month as we discuss how expanding beyond the core capabilities of a case management solution opens the doors to innovation, efficiency, and time savings. Watch our website for more information on the date and time. Thank you again for coming.